My name's Ben. I'm head of shop operations at 1&1. We run our customer-facing shops and self-care applications. My colleague Sven, he's our operations architect, and we will sort of split this presentation. I will do some management stuff and tell you about how we got to the point where we are now, and Sven will later show the technical side. Agenda introduction. We will talk about the general infrastructure a little bit, about our deployment process. Sven will do a demo, and next steps. So first of all, what we're doing with Nginx is we're using it, first of all, as a reverse proxy in front of all of our applications. And we call it in our middleware tier. It's sort of the two-tier aspect that was shown in other presentations, where we use it to interconnect our applications with other applications and with backend systems which are not run in our department but in other departments. Some numbers about our traffic coming in at the front are around 40 million requests a day towards our websites and services. And internally, through the middleware tier, this adds up to around 100 million requests a day. We have 4 tiers right now of Nginx clusters. First of all, it's an 8-node cluster at the front end, handling reverse proxying to our applications. SEO structure is built there, caching, and a lot of other features, which will come on the next slide. Then we have a 4-node cluster for our middleware, a 6-node cluster for caching, and a 6-node cluster for our mobile app doing OAuth and the delivery of data. So we started using NGINX Plus in 2015. The first features that we used was the reverse proxy, active health checks, and SEO structure, where we routed certain websites towards different applications and all made available on one domain. Later, we added blue-green deployments for certain applications, serve static content, and then around 2 years ago, we started thinking about having a middleware tier because we ran into a usual problem with growing infrastructure, getting firewalls and stuff like this. So we decided we will do a gateway, sort of. It's not an API gateway like everyone talks about. It's more like a reverse proxy for APIs without management, without authorization, because this is handled in the applications themselves. And the last thing that we added was the OAuth for our mobile app. That's the plus tiers that we have. Our caching tier is built on OSS Nginx. The reason why we chose OSS for the caching tier was, first of all, back then a lack of licenses that we had, and nowadays we have those licenses, but since we have a low change rate on our caching tiers, we kept it on the OSS side, since the many deployments that we're doing are usually on the plus side. So on the front-end tier, middleware tier, and the OAuth. A big success story when implementing NGINX Plus was that it made several backend systems faster. You could probably say that this is possible with other software too, but for us, it's really the success story of using Nginx. Like you can see, we had an old service version with an old balancer, which was based on HA proxy, which had like a response time of around 1.5 seconds, which was really slow and was slowing down our websites. Development teams started to refactor everything, still using the old cluster, but they got down to around 600 milliseconds, 700 milliseconds. This still wasn't fast enough because there were certain features lacking, like keep alive, and the SSL termination wasn't handled well on those machines. So we exchanged the HA proxy with NGINX, tweaked it, and so we came out on around 500 to 600 milliseconds, and yeah, is running there ever since. Probably there's still need for more refactoring, but since this service, what we're talking about here, is querying like 15 other different services, everything gets together, and then it's like 500 milliseconds. Our general infrastructure consists of standalone NGINXs side by side with HA proxies in TCP balancing mode in front of it. Yeah, why do we do this? Everything could be handled by NGINX. It's for our team to reduce complexity. The HA proxy in front of our NGINXs is handled by a different department. They know a thing or two about balancing TCP traffic, so it was for us the best of both worlds. Leave the balancing on the infrastructure team, and reverse proxying, that's where we came in, because we are responsible for the applications. And we need to change a lot there. This is what our current infrastructure looks like in a simplified way. But yeah, you can see the internet, and there's a DDoS protection proxy in front of it, which is handled by another different team, actually even another company at 1&1. Then we have a pair of HA proxies in every data center that we run, and after the HA proxies come our front-end NGINXs, which then reverse proxy to our front-end applications. The front-end applications are mainly nowadays monoliths still, with some microservices coming now and in the future. But yeah, we're still running huge monoliths. Behind those front-end machines, we have another layer of HA proxies again. Before our middleware tier of NGINXs, which currently consists of 4 machines, 2 in each data center, whose are used for proxying to backend services which are not owned in our team, or even our middleware applications that are consumed by our front-end applications. And there we have the caching tier 2, as some of our applications deliver content which can be cached, or some backend services can be cached, and this is done with the OSS NGINX.
Yeah. One question. Where do you terminate SSL?
Actually, we don't terminate SSL since our security guys enforce the policy in the company to do end-to-end SSL.
Could you please repeat the question since it's being recorded?
Sure. The question was, where do we terminate SSL? Actually, we don't terminate SSL, as our InfoSec guys enforce the policy to end-to-end encryption.
Do you do SSL pass-through on NGINX?
No, actually, we're terminating and securing it again. Deployment process. Yep. So now I will hand over to Sven. He will talk about our deployment process and give you the demo.
Hello. Just one more information about our general infrastructure. The HA proxies just do IP balancing. Yeah, the whole application level balancing we make with NGINX Plus. Yeah. So our deployment process. Basically, we started with Ansible and deployed our Nginx via Ansible. Nowadays, we all have handled via Bitbucket repository where we store our code, just like development also does. And we work with pull requests for new changes or even new features which come. We create branches and so on. So we develop it locally on our machines, push it to the repo, and then we can roll out, after testing, we can roll out the Ansible scripts via Rundeck. At the moment, we have the status that it's so easy that even if you know a bit about JIT workflows and validate and merge pull requests, that even management can do Nginx rollouts. Yeah. A few days ago, we had the situation of a lack of resources in our team, so Ben and I had to roll out Nginx. So typically, it's really very easy, and I just want to show you how we do this. Some specialty in our Ansible playbook. We have a Python script as extension in our Ansible playbook, as extension for the NGINX Plus API. Yeah, so we do all the stuff except the upstreams on a file basis. So our domain configuration, server configuration, and so on, we generate with Jinja 2 templates. And then we talk to the Nginx API and configure the upstreams. As with the newer version of Nginx, SSL certificates can also be handled via the API. This is on our roadmap to do as much as we can with the API. But at the moment, we just use the upstream feature. And as we have quite a lot of domains on our frontend Nginx, we have a concept that we have 2 central files in our Ansible script, which are used for the multi-domain setup. So if we add a new domain, on the one file, we add the domain name and the path to the SSL certificate. And on the other file, we configure the upstreams. So it's just a few minutes and we have a new domain online. So, I have a bit of problem with my mouse. It doesn't want to come more on the right. And then do it like this. So this is basically our free repos we use at the moment. I wanted to show you our front-end repo, the kind of Nginx cache repo for the open source Nginx, because there we don't have the API, so we generate also the upstream configuration, but it's nothing high sophisticated. And we have an additional repo where all the shop certificates are stored. So basically, we have defined group variable, and this is our production system, and this is then our kind of domain YAML. What you can see here, we define the name of the domain. We tell it, do you want to talk HTTPS only or not? This upstream domain construct is used if you have a backend which uses SNI. Then you have to pass with your proxy pass directive the SNI name. And this is why we have here a variable called upstream domain. We have several aliases on our domains. And then we have the location part where we define on which location which app should be served. So here in this case, in the root side, we have our 1&1 home side. Then we have for business clients a special app in the background, and so on and so on. Then we have quite a lot of redirects, especially for print media or even for product management if they want a sexy URL, yeah. So this is one part in our multi-domain setup. For this demo, I just used 3 shops we have. It's our home page, 101.de, our DSL shop, and our mobile shop. So we have here 3 definitions. That's one part. And then we have the main YAML. And here we define for the app name, we defined in the domains YAML. If you remember on the root side for our 1&1 home, we told it the root side shall go to the app EOE_DE. So here we have the app with the name EOE_DE. We define the health check domain, the health check path, the session cookie we use because we are based on Java Tomcat for our shop, so we need a JSession ID, a valid. And in this case, we also do the routing via a special parameter in the JSession ID. So we use with Nginx cookie balance mechanism. Yeah. Yeah, you see nothing special, just these 4 parameters. And if I go further down, there we have the backend systems we use. Yeah. So we have the host name, we have the root which is picked up from the cookie name which ends, and the state. The second magic then are our templates. We use quite a lot Ginger 2 templates. And for the domain configuration, we used a macro to start to iterate over the domain names, which we have in our domain YAML file. And yeah, just some normal stuff, yeah, to block unwanted agents, or even to block clients which make too many requests. Yeah, we can define it here. SSL configuration. We implemented some more and more feature. Yeah, this Ansible playbook is still growing because you get more and more feature requests. The latest request I got was they wanted to have a wildcard domain. So I had to add this domain.vcard configuration. And even that if in Nginx is evil, in Ginger 2 it's quite good. So we define our SSL certificates, the proxy SSL name, and so on, just normal reverse proxy stuff. I think you're used to that. Then we have a customized error location, and so on. If you have any questions, just disrupt me, please. And then we come to the location path, where we iterate through the domain YAML again, which locations we want to have. Yeah. And there we have even some special parameters, because in another session I was today, they said if you have a problem, just put another reverse proxy in front of it to fix it. So we do the same, yeah. Gzip is also very important, yeah. I think it's too much if I go line through line to all this stuff. It's quite a lot, and the main thing comes here, proxy pass to the backend. Yeah. So an additional thing we have, as we have an HProxy in front of it, we have a health check from the HA proxy to our Nginx. And therefore, this server configuration is used. So the HA proxy goes to admin ping, and if we answer pong, then we are live on the HA proxy. Why do I tell you this? Because I'm going to start with the deployment itself. We have a cluster containing 8 nodes, and when we do a rollout, we can, with this mechanism, disable some Nginx's from the HA proxy. So we just remove the Pong file on our local file system. This is also via Ansible. And the HA proxy tests. The server doesn't answer Pong, so it's out of the balancing, and we can do what we want. We can test it before we enable it again. And that is what this location does. And the main playbooks for this, here you can see that this disable Nginx page. So we just remove the static file on the disk so that there's no 200 answer. And the same with enable, we copy the file back. And then when we have our general configure file for Nginx, these are just normal Ansible steps. Yeah, when we provision a new server, we create, of course, the Nginx directories. And then we have a special situation in our team. We aren't root users on our server. So that's why we use directories in our own home environment. And we have just sudo rights to restart the Nginx. So I get a server from our service department with the Nginx package installed. They link the etc conf nginx to our home directory. We get the write access, and then we can provision with this script the Nginx. We upload the SSL certificates and so on and so on. I think this is just basic Ansible. Yeah, it's no high sophisticated thing. And then the last step is configure the upstreams. Yeah, and configure upstreams, we use our Python extension. So we iterate through the main config file, and we have this. No, that's filter upstream. We have this little Python file, which does talk to the API and configures the upstream. I think if you had a look at the Swagger UI at Nginx, you see that we just do it the same way as the Swagger UI said. Here, for example, is the curl command, how you would do it. And we just set our local API, then the parameters we set, and then we send it to the server. Yeah, and we have the use cases: add server, remove server, and change server. So change server, up, down, drain. Quite simple. So in my demo, I just have, now it's my mouse again strikes. I have only this, no? Okay, let's try it. Oh, that was not good. Sorry. Ich komme nicht drüber. I want to go to the other tab, but I can't. Let's try. So I have a local Rundeck running. Rundeck is also an open source project which we quite often use for automating things. It has a public API to other services, so we can connect our CI/CD pipeline directly to Rundeck, and Rundeck then executes the Ansible files. For Nginx, we have several roles. I just took 2 jobs: to deploy new config and update upstream. So if we make this blue-green deployment, Ben told you, we just edit the main YAML, tell the script which one is up and which one is drain. Then we start the Rundeck job, and then it's switched. So if we just... So in our deploy new config, we can select which tier we choose. Yeah, we have here at the moment three tiers. We have our caching tier with OSS Nginx, the front end and the middleware. I implemented here on my local machine the front end tier. And here I can say I want to deploy the full script or just a limit configure script. Limit configure means I do not all the steps I do with the full deployment. For example, I don't copy all the SSL certificates again to the front-end server. Yeah? If I just have a simple change in my configuration which doesn't need a new certificate, I just say I want to run the limit configuration. So in this case, we just run the full because it's only 2 servers, and this should go quite fix. You have a log output about this scripts, yeah, what it does. If you're familiar with Ansible, you probably know ARA, the same you see here in Rundeck. Yeah, it's quite good. So as you can see here on the steps, we disable one data center. We deploy the new config on this disabled data center. And after that, we enable the data center, disable the next data center, and it starts again. As I have only 2 servers here, it's quite fixed. So this is the dashboard of one of my local server. You can see everything is green. This is the public IP of our website, so I hope hopefully it's green, yeah. And sorry, I have a bit of problem with my PC. Okay, ich komme nicht hin. Ich komme mit der Maus nicht weiter. Okay. Then we do it the hard way. So here is our repo. We go to Ansible Nginx. We go to the group was demo. We do vim main.yaml. So now we just change, for example, the EE host. We say we don't want to serve AOA, put it to down. We go back to our Rundeck and we say, okay, we want to update our upstreams. We want to update the cluster group. I changed the AOA, so I want to update the AOA. Run it now. And we look at the output. It's just a configure upstream, just as you also would use if you use curl to talk with the API. It's just the same. Yeah. So you see we have a changed upstream type. The state is now down. And when we go back, we should see that AOA, yes, it's down. As we have 8 front-end server, it is quite comfortable to do this via Ansible, to deploy all, because if you want to do it via the GUI, the dashboard, this is quite a bit too heavy for these things. So, do you have any questions? Okay.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, just earlier you were talking about the encryption end-to-end. Is that just to your front-end servers and then everything else is unencrypted for your caching?
No, everything is encrypted.
Everything is encrypted. So the front-end server terminates the SSL connection to the client, and the front-end server makes a new SSL connection as client to the backend.
Okay. I guess I'm just confused how the caching...
In the caching case, the same. If I cache an SSL backend, then I also go from my middleware Nginx to the OSS Nginx via SSL, and then I go from the cache server to the unencrypted service if it's only unscripted supported.
Okay.
So I even add SSL to services which are not encrypted out of the box. Yeah, and we try to work a lot with keep alive and so on, that you don't have the performance issue with handshake times. That's quite important. And on the cache side, if I configure an open source Nginx, I just leave out the API calls, and via the Ginger template, I set the upstreams in the Nginx conf file. That's quite the same as here, except the API call. And one specialty we have with our cache, we use this IP hash balancing mechanism. So we have 4 middleware Nginxes and 6 OSS cache tiers, and we only cache a thing one time. Yeah, with this hash balancing mechanism. It's really quite good. So Ben, I would hand over to Ben, but I think I can PowerPoint not start anymore. Tricky. Okay, Ben, your turn.
Let's go. Okay.
This works. Good.
Yeah, exactly. We have a couple of next steps for the near future, what we want to do. Actually, we wanted to upgrade to R18, but then the announcement of R19 came last week. So we plan to upgrade to R19 this year. We want to exchange the Ingress controllers on our Kubernetes cluster to the Nginx Ingress controller. Use Nginx for a public API, which is outward facing for our new website, which use React and modern web technologies, so to speak. And actually, we plan to open source our deployment solution until the end of the year.